trying something a little new. You're going to see a new upload format. We'll see if this does better than the live stream. So if you are talking tonight, be sure that you share this video as much as you can. Like I said, tonight is our holiday edition. Unai is here with me from 13 AM Games. We put on bonus stage every single month. We play Mingle.
We're 13 AM Games.
Yep, we said that. I just said it in a weird way. If you've never been to bonus stage before, what we do is we come out to Power Up Bar down at Fred and Wellington in Toronto. What do you do?
So first, until this gets full of people, you can play some games, eat some food, watch some sports, and then we have 5-minute talks about anything game development related. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're working in the industry, you're looking for a job, you're a student, doesn't matter. And then the rest of the night, just hang around, get some beers, and mingle with us and everyone here.
Yeah. The theme for the talks tonight is how do we survive? So there should be some interesting talks, and we'll get to them right about now.
No, everyone keep talking. I thought you were waiting.
Still no.
Well, I'm never helping ever again. I move my shit back to the left side again. And then you have to guard this almost starting to fight. Okay, that's a lot.
Okay, this is a sound check. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me at the back? Awesome. As people walk into the room, cool. Yes, you all can find a seat for me. That would be amazing. Everybody can switch hands with your friends, make some new friends. If you have any friends at the bar, they should probably come over here right about now if they want to listen to the talk. Welcome to a very cozy version of bonus stage. It is the holidays, so we're a little bit smaller than we normally are. Again, okay, let's start from the top. So, welcome to the holiday edition of bonus stage. If you've never been here before, hello, I'm Megan. Unai is at the back there. He's from 13 AM. I'm myself. We host bonus stage every single month. This month we're trying out something new, so speakers. Your recordings over here. Hello. Hi.
Yo, what's up?
So we're going to try recording video instead of doing live streams and then kind of uploading it after. We're hoping there will be better quality. You can let us know if there's better quality. And also, if you've never been to bonus stage before, welcome. We do 5 game developers come up on stage. They do 5 minutes each talking about a subject. The theme for this month is how do we survive? And I hope you really like it. And the very first speaker of the night is going to be Jake.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Jake, and I had a talk planned for tonight that was going to be about time as an element of music and how that affects the creative and listening process and how I survive with that music taking time during that process. But instead, today I remembered that I have a burning hatred, and I would like to share that burning hatred with you. It's not so much burning, it's more of like an icy cold hatred. It's there's an infection. There's a parasite, if you will, that has infiltrated our beloved video games, okay? And specifically, the snow levels. Now, we all know snow levels.
Oh,
we all love snow levels. Probably. I don't know. They have a couple of annoying things in them. They have those, slippery ice mechanics of, there's no traction on the ground. It's kind of annoying. You can get turned into a block of ice sometimes by enemies, and that's kind of annoying. But no, it's not any of that. It's in your ears. There's an infection, a parasite, an earworm, if you will, in your ears. And you probably have heard it before. That's not even it! I thought the LC player was supposed to be good.
Oh yeah.
What is this?
This is jingles.
Sleigh bells! These are called sleigh bells. They are the worst thing in history. I hate them. Now, you might be telling yourself, Jake, sleigh bells aren't so bad. It's the holiday season. It's festive. It's jolly. You're wearing a Christmas sweater. Well, let me tell you. How do you survive? I cannot when these things exist in the world. Okay? I'm gonna tell you why. So, sleigh bells have been in music for like 150 years or something. Okay, before that they were actually on horses, on sleighs, so that you wouldn't get hit by a horse while it's going through the snow. It was a good use for them. Then eventually someone decided to put the bells like on a stick so you could shake it in music. And that's really where humanity went downhill. So that decided to attach itself to Christmas music, basically. And that's probably where you've heard these things. They're in all Christmas music ever. And of course, that got itself into video games. You've probably heard them in video games. It's in your Marios. It's in your Banjo-Kazooies. It's in your Earthbounds, in your Undertales, in your Clay Fighters. I found that one out recently. It's in Clay Fighters. It's everywhere. And it's horrible because I don't have an issue with the instrument itself. Like, it can't do very much. Like, why does it keep playing not the right thing? You know what? This thing's a piece of junk. So, really, you just shake it. That's all the instrument does. It's a percussion instrument. You can't expect too much out of a stick with bells on it, right? But it's the way that it's used is the issue, because it's only in Christmas music. And if you try to use it in something that's not Christmas music, it turns that thing into Christmas music. And it's horrible. I've tried it. I put sleigh bells over Dead Mouse, turns it into Christmas music. It's a terrible, terrible time. My mom was not impressed by that display of music and genius. Now, when you put this in a video game, it kind of does two things. To me, it shows that, like, I'm not putting down the composers that use it, because it's a very effective tool. If you want something to sound like Christmas, stick sleigh bells in it. But as a composer, if you choose not to use sleigh bells to make something sound holiday and festive, it's kind of like you're making a bit of a challenge on yourself, right? You have to create Christmas music without this thing that automatically makes Christmas music. And that does two things. It makes composers challenge themselves, and it kind of pushes the music as a whole, as an art form, forward, because you're not relying on these things that we know work and that drive Jake crazy, is that you are pushing yourself, because we've been using sleigh bells for like 150 years. There's other ways to make Christmas music, and I know that games out there, game soundtracks, we can do it. I believe in us, because once you hear a sleigh bell, now that you've all heard this talk, I guarantee, next time you're playing Mario, you're gonna get to that ice level, and you're gonna hear it, and you're gonna be like, damn it, Jake. Because you will never unhear it. And now, how will you survive? I have no idea. Happy holidays, everyone.
Okay, so for our second speaker of the night, we have Steven.
Hello. I actually like sleigh bells, but wow. If you're not familiar with who I am, my name is Steve Crane. I run a website called CanadianGameDevs.com. It used to be called TorontoGameDevs.com until earlier this year. And this is the first time I'm talking here for Bonus Stage. And I thought I would just talk about how the site has survived for about 4 years. 4 years in March. So for those unfamiliar, the website was TorontoGameDevs.com. It came about because I found out that Guacamelee was created here in Toronto, and I simply asked the question, what other games have been created in Toronto? And you don't really have to look that far to realize that it's a lot of games. And 13 new games this year. Drinkbox Studios, who made Guacamelee, Happy Vera, who just made Hello, that just came out. There's Ubisoft Toronto, there's plenty. And I figured that people, they like to go to farmers markets and eat local. They like to get their clothes made locally. They like to support local artists and musicians. And I don't know if that's really kind of transferred over to tech, specifically video games. And I figured that people should be proud and they want to explore the games created kind of in their own backyard. So TorontoGameDevs.com Toronto Game Devs just on Twitter started in January of whatever 5 years ago it was, 4 years ago, whatever. And it became a Tumblr. Quickly after that, I realized that Tumblr is awful, and just decided to make www.torontogamedesk.com, which still works, in March of, I'll just say, I guess, 2015. And I wrote notes, and now I forget what the next point was. And then, so the site started as the Twitter, became Tumblr, became then a website, and it kind of survived mostly off of word of mouth, and I primarily used Twitter to get the point across. That's where I met a lot of great people, including 13 Games. Rumble was one of the earliest games I kind of quote-unquote discovered. That was made, like an indie game made here in Toronto, and in the early days it was really just kind of word of mouth with friends that I kind of made. We started a podcast, and a lot of people here helped the site continue to survive, including Jake Bunno, who did the intro. I forget his intro or outro, I'm sorry. One of the intro for the podcast. Brett Meeser, who some of you might know, did the podcast with me, co-hosting. Dan Rodriguez, who their team obviously knows, also co-hosted the podcast and did the outro for the thing. And of course, my lovely wife, Heather, has always just supported the site and helped the site survive. But as the site kind of kept growing, it's always been kind of a part-time love affair. And with anything that takes a lot of time, you would want to try to make some money. So in order to kind of continue the growth, we have a Patreon, which has certainly helped kind of fund the site. We have a merch where you can get cool hats like this, t-shirts and stuff like that. Jake, you're not wearing a t-shirt. And posting jobs as well. So you might notice that it's a great resource for students and people who are looking for work. There's CanadianGameDesk.com/jobs, where you can just find the job postings, and I charge for that. Late 2018. So it was always kind of a part-time thing. It still is a part-time thing. Late 2018, I realized that it kind of hit a plateau. The traffic to the site kind of, it was always kind of growing, but kind of plateaued, and the amount of Twitter followers and the amount of growth that I felt like that I could achieve had already kind of hit its max. So I thought in order to survive, we would go to CanadianGameDesk.com. TorontoGameDesk.com still works, don't worry. And basically now, instead of being proud of what's created in our own backyard here in Toronto, we should be proud of what's kind of created here in Canada. And obviously, a lot of us probably know a lot of the great developers out here in Canada. BioWare is out in Alberta, there's plenty in Vancouver, plenty in Montreal, etc. It's been really hard to keep up, because as active as Toronto is, Canada is way more active. And I have a full-time job and also like to do fun things, including just play video games. It's been really tough. So I figured, and Megan suggested this the last time I talked to her, there is and some of you might want to know this too, it's called It's a Start. At DigiFest, it's a pitch for startups to kind of pitch what they're working on, and it's pretty broad, but you can kind of do VR, video games, media, whatever, and the grand prize is $5,000. So this is sort of a precursor to that, but in order for the site to continue to survive, I'm going to have to start trying to think of ways to either pay myself to do it full-time or pay someone else to do it part-time along with me. And that's really just it. This is just a plug for the site. So go to CanadianGameDesk.com, on Twitter, on Twitch, all the good stuff. Just Google it and just Google will tell you where to go. That's my talk.
Well, thanks so much for pitching It's a Start for me too. You don't have to do that later. Also, we got your submission, don't worry. So, our third speaker for tonight is going to be Mauricio. Woo!
Thank you. Hello everybody, my name is Mauricio, or Maury for short. So today I wanted to talk about one of my most recent experiences from being in the industry. Being more or less about 3 years or so working as a game programmer. And I found that one of the things that, especially when working with small companies, one of the things that you deal a lot with would be a lot of stress, or a lot of those busy times where everybody's just cramming together, running in circles, things like that. So I thought it would be a good idea to talk about that sort of experience and how myself and as well my team went through it. So one of the things that I or one of the rules that I put myself always was to always try to take time for myself, like even if it's just 10 minutes to go to the washroom or take get some water or something like that. It helped me keep going for my day not only because at the end of the day I was like, okay, I'm dead, I'm done. I cannot deal with this anymore. But then at the same time, it's kind of like just those 10 minutes, then I was able to figure out problems that I would have with my code or like, things like that. So from that, I feel like there's a few things that you can get from there, other than just getting ideas. The second thing that I found was try to figure it out together as a team. So a lot of times that stress could come from, you try to kind of like figure out the source of that issue at times. So talking to your team is very important because I feel like you get together as a group, or maybe, if you're working with a team, you get together as a group and then you figure out, maybe it's because there's a lot of like projects, or there's a lot of or there's not much people working, and then you manage to kind of like together you manage to figure out what to do with it, with your time, and find out what works best for the team. And a lot of times, actually, all of this, what I learned from this experience is that it leads to a burnout. Now, going through a burnout sometimes is difficult because you feel like you're working on a game, right? But you might not feel as passionate about it anymore, or you might not feel like I'm doing this every day, but what of it? So I try to, or one of the things that I found that is very important is to always think about the end goal. So, or think about why are you doing that. So a lot of times I'm thinking, I feel lucky that I'm working in the game industry, because not everybody gets the chance to work in it. So I feel like it's one of those things where I feel like this could be something at the end of the day. So it's kind of like pushing forward and just trying to just keep pushing for things, keep pushing for that final goal. And at the end of the day, I feel like you get to learn from it, and also you never know, maybe you will get to make the next hit. So yeah, that's basically it for that.
Okay, and number 4, we have John.
Hello, my name is John Wang. I'm going to do a talk on D&D because I like it. So the talk is going to be about how to survive DMing your own dynamic D&D session. I played a lot of D&D and I found that the most fun sessions were always the ones that were super dynamic and non-linear. But the problem with these ones are that they often get derailed. People will just do their own thing, or they'll think of options that you didn't think of, and it just breaks the whole flow of the game. So this is what I've kind of done myself through trial and error mostly to sort of avoid that scenario. So my first point is to create the world and derive the story. A lot of the times when you make D&D campaigns, you just create the story and then build everything off that. But what I suggest is, instead of doing that, create the world and then just let the story happen naturally. So what this means is that you create the setting, you create the characters, and maybe you have some problem or event that triggers everything, and then after that you just leave it to the players. This way it makes your campaign become so much more natural and so much more interesting for the players to play. And also it plays around a point really well, which I learned recently about non-linear games, which is let the world react to the players instead of forcing the players to react to the world. My second point is make lists. I found that making lists when you're preparing for your campaign is so amazing in helping you think of stuff dynamically, because it's right there, you can just access it. It's right there. So an example of this is if you create lists of characters with different motivations, backstories, all of that stuff, you can, whenever you need another character to take any role, you can just pick one of your characters, put it in that role, and then everything will work out fine. This helps because it gives the players a sense of boundlessness, in the sense that they don't feel like they're being bound by the content that you have created for them, so that when they decide something, when they like think of, oh, what if happens if I do this? It's not just going to be a void, like an empty void, like No Man's Sky. It's not going to be just that empty void where you can do something, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just you're just doing it because you can do it. There's actually content for you to discover and for you to play with. So I make a lot of lists. Some of the stuff that I usually make lists of are tropes, like story tropes, items, institutions, names, systems, all that stuff. And the final point is make maps. I love maps when it comes to world building, and it works wonders in D&D. When you're making maps, you've got all these interesting decisions, all these questions that you have to ask yourself, like why is the border drawn like this? Why are these guys so big? Why are there so many cities over here? And all of these decisions that you make are things that can go into your world. All of these are things that you can make history and culture out of, and you can let your players discover. And also, don't just make one map, make tons of maps. I always make maps I always make political maps, I always make cultural and geographical maps, religious maps, maps made by different groups of people, maps made in different times, and all of it comes together to create a really in-depth and interesting history and culture for your world. So, in conclusion, if you want to make a really dynamic game, try to make it so that you're making the world instead of the story. To help you make the world, use maps. To help you derive the story, make lists. Thanks.
Thank you. And the very last talk of the night is going to be a Sean.
I'm gonna time myself to 5 minutes here.
We got you timed in the back, don't worry.
Okay, thank you. I don't trust myself. All right, greetings everyone. My name is Ishan Mohammed Masahir, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you guys for giving me the time to speak. So I want to start with a concept. This is the only thing that's related to video games right now. So the concept goes like this. Many, many years back, when we didn't have technology, when things were just so primitive, to know if we had a good idea, we had to make sure we survived. How? Did we live or did we die? Pretty simple, right? If you died, it was a failure. You couldn't live to tell anyone, someone had to tell you, or someone had to witness it. But if you succeed, well, you were able to continue. So, in my opinion, that's what video games are. Video games are a continuous educational tool where you learn from your mistakes, trial and error. That being said, I feel like this has been the blueprint of our society. We've grown to sort of evolve this, and it's been grown so exponentially that it's wonderful the things we've come up with, the technologies we've come up with. However, there's an aspect to survival that I don't think we've paid much attention to, and that's our spiritual life. And what I mean by our spiritual life, I don't mean your belief system, I don't mean your religion, I don't mean your creed, your caste, I don't mean your values, and I don't mean your thoughts. Well, I do mean your thoughts, your inner thoughts. The things that you think of, the things that are you. What do I call this? I call it the source. And what the source is this relationship. It's not a relationship you share externally. It's not a relationship that comes to you. It's a relationship that you live with every single day. You have this relationship from the moment you wake up. From the moment you brush your teeth and wash your face. that relationship carries with you from one point to the next point until you go back to sleep. Now, how you choose to live with this relationship is a very important thing. I feel like before anything you can think of, you need to be able to look at yourself and take care of yourself. So I feel, especially in our modern societies, there's been a sever between our spiritual life. For a lot of people, they just don't feel the need to respect themselves enough. They compare themselves to other people. They see all these massive, idealistic ways of living, and because of that, we no longer feel that connection with ourselves. So, an example about this is how we handle our relationships, whether it's with our parents, friends, or family, spouse. We tend to extract information from people. It's somewhat of a codependent relationship, whereas I need something from you and you take something from me. Then we end up seeking pleasure and seeking all these things and chasing all these things. For example, having this nice car, big family, big house. We're always on this chase. As a recent graduate, I thought to myself, all right, the next big step is to get a job, right? And what happens then after that? Family, and then after that, just keeps going on and on. You live in limbo. You don't really live in the present moment. So, how do we develop this relationship? To develop this relationship, we need to be able to separate our attachments to these things, to really accept who we are as individuals, to look at ourselves and heal from our suffering, our insecurities, instead of putting the blame on things and saying, this person did that, therefore I'm suffering. No, you gotta look inwards and see, hey, this is a problem that I need to work out on. And once you do those things, you'll find that surviving is just natural. It's not even a question. You don't even have to ask it. You just live the motions, and you live so joyfully. I hope this share was worth it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that concludes our talks. My cameraman would like to make an announcement. If you'd like to come up here to make
So, thank you for joining us tonight in our new YouTube channel. We hope you had a good time with our 5 talks. You learned something today. And remember to smash the like button.
subscribe to the channel.
We still don't know the name of the channel.
We'll know it by now.
Hopefully. So yeah, we're here every month for Tuesday of the month.
Also, we always forget this. Ring the bell for notifications so that when we upload this video, you get a chance to know first. And then you can share it with everybody because nobody's going to even know that this exists.
And smash the like button.
Yes, that's you. Again.
And if you want to come hang with us in person, it's in Toronto Pub, Laura Bar.
Come play video games.
It's fun.
Yeah, third Tuesday of every month. Talks start at 9, event starts at 8. Come hang out with us. We do 5 game developers give 5 talks each. No, 5 game developers give a 5-minute talk each.
Close enough.
And yeah, you can find the event info on our Facebook page. It's just facebook.com/Mingle. That's about it. Thanks for hanging out with us.